Welcome back to Light the Fuse. Boy, it feels good to be back, doesn't it, Charles?
Yeah, feels really good. I know we were going to do this last week, but we had to bring in Perry to talk about the Oscars. That was crucial. That was a really fun time. And now we're here to talk about Rogue Nation deleted scenes. There was a quick diversion I wanted to get to just about Rogue Nation. That's not really much of a diversion, but just Phil Perello, who's a past guest of ours, wrote an article about Jack Reacher for the AV Club, sort of similar to our anniversary episodes that we did with Christopher McQuarrie. He interviewed McQuarrie, and McQuarrie had a quote in there that I just wanted to bring up, which I thought was really interesting. McQuarrie said to Phil, "The studio offered me the choice of doing another Reacher or what would become Rogue Nation. Tom was prepared to back whatever choice I made. I came quite close to passing on Mission, and I'm quite sure there were certain people who hoped I would." End quote. So there's a version where instead of McQuarrie doing Rogue Nation, he would be doing a second Jack Reacher.
This is a real sliding glass doors or whatever that movie was.
Sliding doors,
yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine?
No.
The second Jack Reacher would have been awesome, but we would probably be deprived of everything that has happened with Mission since then.
Yeah, that is an insane alternate universe.
Yeah.
So anybody from that universe, let us know how it turned out. We want to know.
And speaking of alternate universes, there could be a different version of Rogue Nation that includes some deleted scenes that were shot, and you see glimpses of them in some trailers, but they've never been released. We have the script, so we're going to read some of those today. However, before we get into that, we probably want to do your favorite part of the show.
Yes, of course, and I've got an extra shout out, so I'm extra excited to do this. Obviously, we want to shout out Jeremy Dillon in My Favorite Album. We want to shout out John B., Elvis Ripley, Suchet, who we got to meet on our amazing monthly Zoom call, which if you're a top tier Patreon member, you get to be a part of. And this week, I want to give a shout out to GreatMotorcycleRoads.com. Motorcycles are an exciting part of the Mission Impossible movies. If you'd like to find the best motorcycle roads near you, visit GreatMotorcycleRoads.com. So you and I are too much of a... We're pussies and we don't have motorcycles. But if we did and we wanted to figure out where to ride those hogs, we'd go to this website.
Yes, we would. And obviously Mission Impossible is all about motorcycles. So that's great. We love this little brought to you by. This is great.
Yeah. So use it if you're into your motorcycle and into riding around. So, all right, Charles, how do we want to break this down?
I guess, we're going to be doing some acting today. I know it's your favorite. We're
Yes.
going to be talking about we're going to be acting out some of this stuff. I guess we're just going to go scene by scene. And the biggest thing is that there's that big 10-minute section later in the movie that was cut out. We talk about a lot in our making of Rogue Nation episodes, which if you have not heard, you should go back and listen to those. But let's start from the beginning, because at the very, very opening of the movie, the opening sequence with Ethan getting on the side of the Airbus, the A400, and he gets inside, and then, as we know in the final movie, he gives that kind of shrug look to the guy on the plane, and then, he parachutes off, and then we immediately go into the title sequence. But there was an extension of that sequence that goes beyond that. I'm not sure if it was filmed, but it was scripted. And so what we have here is in the cockpit, the nav officer walks in slack-jawed, and the pilot says, "What's going on?" And the pilot and co-pilot turn to him, and the nav officer says,
"Some guy in a business suit just took all our shit."
The pilot blinks, and the pilot says, "What?" And the nav officer says,
"Yeah."
And then we cut to exterior Belarus airspace, government building, the parachute holding the pallet. I guess the pallet is the the thing that Ethan was attached to, right?
Have you never been to a Costco? Yeah, that's a pallet.
Yeah, the pallet. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing it right? Pallet?
Yes, Charles.
Okay. All right. I what do I know? Ethan holds on as the pallet descends rapidly towards the city. He passes a cell tower on top of a building, floats over a government building quadrant where an official car pulls up. Ethan jumps off the pallet onto a roof. Squads of soldiers in ceremonial dress stand to attention and salute as a dignitary steps out of the car to greet the waiting party when the pallet smashes into the dignitary's SUV, crushing it. The soldiers dive for cover. Ethan watches from the roof as the pallet spills more canisters. And then Ethan says, "The package is secured. He ducks out, and that's the end of the scene. So that's instead of our title sequence. Thoughts?
Do we know if this was shot?
We don't know. I don't know. We'll have to ask McQuarrie if they actually filmed it. Or did they realize as they were shooting, the better way to go right into this title sequence is to just let him give them that look and then just go right into it, which is obviously perfect. We love it so much.
Yeah.
So next up is, I think we talked about this actually a little bit. This is very brief, but outside of the vinyl offer, the record store scene, after Ethan gets gassed, Lane emerges onto the street and walks away. He places a cigarette in his teeth and runs a match along the wall, igniting it, taking us to the credits. So he was going to actually light the fuse, essentially, to get the title sequence going. And so the title sequence in script form was much later. So they had the opening sequence, they had Ethan go to the record shop, Ethan gets gassed, and then Lane comes out, lights his cigarette, and then that's what takes us to the credits.
I'm very into that idea.
Really?
Yeah. What about you?
I don't know. I remember they had a reorganization of that with Mission Impossible 2 also, right? Originally they were going to do... Weren't they going to do the mountain climbing first and then they switched it and did the opening where Ambrose takes... So it's funny how they kind of shift these title sequences around. Even the first movie, I think, initially didn't have the title sequence even in the script.
Yeah, I mean, what we've talked about this before, but these movies are very modular and that you can kind of reconfigure them as you will. I just am very interested in another character lighting the fuse in a physical way.
Yes. And it kind of goes in keeping with how McHugh likes to kind of play with the formula and stuff. And so to have especially because, the mission briefing had just been taken over by the Syndicate. So why not have the fuse be lit by the Syndicate?
Yeah, and it really establishes him as this kind of shadow version of
Ethan
Hunt.
Yeah, I love that. So it would be interesting to see. I don't know if they had a cut of that. We'll have to also ask them about that. Next up, this is right after Benji gets his weekly polygraph test at the CIA. Remember how he gets his little test and he fakes his way through it. So this is after that. Interior interrogation room day. Brant sifts through the papers on the table. Do you want to be Alec Baldwin or do you want to be Jeremy Renner?
I'll be Alec Baldwin.
You be Alec Baldwin?
Okay. I have my throat is a little scratchy today, so I think it'll really...
All right, for this scene, Drew is going to be Hunley, aka Alec Baldwin. I'm going to be Brant, aka Jeremy Renner. So here we go. Brant sifts through the papers on the table.
What did you want to say to me, Brant?
Politicians and CEOs dying, banks collapsing, governments dissolving, and a lot of innocent people are dying in the process.
Just another day at the office.
Western civilization is slowly coming apart.
It won't happen on my watch.
Unless... Hunley doesn't reply. Unless these random catastrophes aren't random at all, and some of these dead operatives aren't really dead. That might explain why the Syndicate is so hard to find. We're looking for the living. Hunley shakes his head, dismissing.
Come on, Brant.
Hear me out. If I'm reading this right, Ethan's telling us someone is recruiting operatives to attack the very same system that created them, a rogue nation, one who has no regard for collateral damage.
I told you before, Hunt is making it up.
I hope he is, sir. If he's not... This is your worst nightmare. Brant focuses on two images in particular, the sketches of Solomon Lane and the woman. Thoughts?
I like it. I'm very confused by this movie. So
would this help lay it out a little bit simpler for you?
I think so. I think that the movies have become clearer since, or the movie has become clearer since. And part of that is that repetition of what are they after? What do they want?
Right.
What are the components?
Well, and it sounds, obviously we know that there was a pickup to have Ethan say the words Rogue Nation. So I wonder if that's because they cut this section where Brant says Rogue Nation. We had our title spelled out for us by Brant, and they switched it after they cut the scene. I think it was a good cut. This seems like it's to me, it feels a little bit redundant. It would kind of slow the trajectory of where we're going with the movie. So I don't know if it was necessary, but I get what you're saying, that it does help kind of clarify a little bit some things.
Yeah, and I think it kind of connects us to Hunt during his kind of time abroad in the wilderness a little bit.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway.
So next up, we've got the IMF gadget boat safe house, that Benji and Ethan go to after the opera. And so we've got an extension of dialogue here between Benji and Ethan. So here's the question. Do you want to be Simon Pegg or do you want to be Tom Cruise?
You already know the answer to this.
I assume you're going to be Ethan?
No, I want to be Simon Pegg so I can have an accent.
Oh, okay. Oh. I should have known. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
All right, so you'll be Benji, I'll be Ethan. Here we go. We're on the gadget boat. This is in the middle of that scene. Go ahead.
Ethan, at least tell me what's going on here.
Ever have a crisis of faith, Benji?
More than once. Am I fighting for the right side? Should I really risk my life for a world that doesn't seem to care?
Wow, you're really laying it on thick here. And sometimes the answer is no. Beat. Benji nods. Yes, he's not proud of it. It happens to the best of us. Of course, most of us come back from that place, but not all. Ethan clicks on the TV with a remote control. Photos of faces we have seen before in Havana and again with Brant and Hunley. Recognize anyone? Says Ethan. So this is like,
what is that? What is
they're
this?
they're kind of questioning their job here a little bit. Benji saying, am I fighting for the right side? Should I really risk my life for a world that doesn't seem to care? Kind of interesting. The crisis of faith coming in here. That's not really a part of in Rogue Nation, really, is it?
No, I mean, and who are they looking for in the TV?
I think these are all the people that they saw that night at the opera. That still kind of happens. Ethan brings up the images and they point out operatives who have been dead because they've been pulled into the syndicate.
Okay.
Anyway, so now the next part is also in the same location. This is Ethan, an extension of what Ethan was talking about. He says, looking at a chemical plant, that fire bankrupted a global arms corporation. He points to a plane crash. That missing plane was carrying the secretary of the World Bank. He points to a car accident. This wreck triggered a civil war. These are no accidents. They're links in a chain. The work of a single organization, the Syndicate, an army of lost souls trained to do what we do, only now they have a sense of purpose. So that's before they did that little reshoot where then he uses the words Rogue Nation. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a judicious cut.
Yeah.
For sure.
It almost seems more like it's an alternative wording.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a little bit shortened as well. Yeah. Okay, next up is right before the tourist sequence. This is in that safe house that they're in Morocco. This is on the rooftop at dusk, and it's a scene between Ethan and Ilsa. So, do you want to be Rebecca Ferguson, or do you bring your accent back?
Yeah, I'll be Rebecca Ferguson. I think you're just embodying Ethan to such a degree. I don't know who I'm talking to right now. Am I talking to Charles? Am I talking to Ethan?
It's like Tom Cruise is back on Zoom with you again.
It really is. It really is.
All right, so exterior safe house rooftop, dusk. This is before the tourist sequence.
Okay.
A peaceful, shady oasis overlooking Casablanca and the ocean beyond. Ilsa sits facing the sea in quiet contemplation, her eyes closed. Then,
do you ever wish you didn't know the things we know?
She opens her eyes, turns to find Ethan walking up behind her. She sensed him there. Not anymore. He takes a seat behind her, looks out at the sea.
I figure you have 2.5 minutes to make the switch. The only way to conserve oxygen is to minimize...
Ilsa is taken aback as Ethan interrupts. Lane doesn't really believe you escaped from us in Vienna. Ilsa is taken aback. Finally. What aren't you telling me? What else does Lane want from you?
Deliver the ledger. Deliver you.
What do you want to do? Beat.
We use the ledger to take apart the syndicate from the ground up. We can hunt them down, one at a time, isolate Lane, and kill him.
Ethan says nothing. I wish I could, but that's not what I do.
So what's the play?
I don't know yet. Let's just try to make it through tomorrow alive.
2.5 minutes, no longer.
That's the plan. And scene. Thoughts?
Nice little exchange. I don't know, does Ethan have a Batman-style moral code? What exactly is keeping him from this? He just doesn't want to be an assassin, basically.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe that's why the scene didn't make it. Because maybe the question is this necessary? And the answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see Ethan and Ilsa bond a little bit, I guess, but yeah, I guess it definitely felt like this feels like was not necessary in the end. All right, so next up, we've got, this is in the middle of the big car chase after the tourist sequence. So I think this is after Benji and Ethan have flipped the BMW a bunch of times and they landed, and Brant and Luther show up to free them, right? And so this is when Brant comes out to try to he's actually trying to cut Benji's seatbelt. So there's like a whole, I guess, little mini suspense thing here. So it says, meanwhile, Brant pulls out a knife and tries to cut Benji's seatbelt. New tension. The sound of police sirens approaching. The sound of a motorcycle revving. Brant and Luther turn in time to see Ethan racing away on the dead man's bike. Brant drops the knife, and they turn for the car. And Benji says,
"Wait, what are you doing? Don't leave."
Benji sees them take off.
"Are you kidding me?
He tries to reach the knife.
You could have dropped it closer."
That's a pretty funny little beat there that we don't get anymore. I wonder if
we just got to get into that motorcycle chase.
You want to go off with those motorcycles.
Yeah.
All right, so now this is the end of the motorcycle chase, and this is a longer kind of section here. How about you get to be Solomon Lane here? You're gonna have quite a speech.
Yeah, there's a lot of stage direction here. So okay,
so
yeah, you do that.
I'll cover the stage direction.
Okay.
You cover Solomon Lane here. This is the end of the motorcycle chase. Now it's just Ethan and Ilsa, but she's gained separation. The road opens up. She pours on the speed. On his own turns, Ethan follows. Close on Ethan, his face rippling in the high wind. Exterior mountain road, Ethan, day. Just Ethan now. He pushes the bike as hard as he dares, going as fast as he can. Ethan's POV, the rocks and trees blurring into swaths of red and green. The road seems to vibrate. We expect to see Ilsa any second. What he doesn't expect, he leans into a curve to find an oncoming truck straddling the line in the road. Ethan reacts, brakes, turns, too hard. He dumps the bike and winds up sliding on his back, feet first, a human bullet. The bike hits debris in the road and suddenly flips up in the air, cartwheeling violently, disintegrating as it spins, kicking up dust. Ethan slides into the cloud of debris a beat later and vanishes from view. We go after him, into the cloud, flying blind. Silence. The smoke clears slowly, painfully. Ethan emerges, battered and staggering. He wipes the dust from his eyes in time to see Ilsa driving past, heading back the way she came. She flips up her visor and we see the relief in her eyes. He is alive, and he's finished. She flips back her visor and accelerates. Gone. Ethan flops back in the dirt, wasted. After a moment, a car drives past, stops, backs up. The back door opens and Solomon Lane climbs out, followed by two men. Lane approaches Ethan, crouches down to come closer.
"You need to learn to let go, my friend."
Oh, this is great. This is great. I love it. Okay, sorry. Ethan tries to sit up. Lane pushes him back down gently.
"No, you stay still. You may have broken something."
Lane keeps his hand on Ethan's chest.
"Your mission, should you choose to accept it. I'm curious. Did you ever choose not to? Did you ever question who was giving the orders, or why? And what is your reward for years of loyal service? When it suits them, they cast you aside. I would never do that to you, Ethan."
Lane walks away, looks down the road in the direction Ilsa left. Ethan sits up painfully.
"If it's any consolation, she did it for your sake. But there's nothing out there for her now. She'll have to come back to you. It's inevitable. She'll keep telling herself she's playing the part, but you and I both know that's just a slippery slope. One day she'll wake up and find herself on my side. And so will you. Oh, I didn't expect it to happen all at once. Volunteers are zealots, fanatics. That sort of thinking clouds the mind. No, I want converts. People whom there's simply nothing left. Self-radicalization."
Lane crouches at Ethan's feet.
"You're already on your way. I sent Ilsa to kill the Chancellor, but you shot him. You can tell yourself that you were trying to save his life, but he was a bad guy, Ethan. Part of a corrupt and crumbling system. One you've had a hand in perpetuating. One you've long since ceased to question. He had to be dealt with. And if you'd fired a few inches to the left, he'd be just as dead, but his wife would still be alive."
As Ethan processes.
"It hurts, I know. The first one is the hardest, but the pain you feel is your own shell breaking."
He turns and walks away. His men follow.
"The next time we speak, I'll have a job for you, and for the sake of others, you'll do it. Deep down, you may even want to. After all, I'm not out to break you, Ethan. I'm out to see you free."
Woo! We've got more to go, but I just wanted to quickly chime in and say that's interesting that some of that stuff ended up in Fallout.
Yeah, that's an excellent little bit of villainy there.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's really interesting. We're going to keep going down this road now because this is part of that whole big section that got cut out and simplified. If you listen to our Making of Rogue Nation episode, you'll hear more about what this section was, and there's clips of it in some of the trailers. Anyway, so we're going to continue. Exterior roadside bar, outside Morocco, day. A beat-up truck pulls up and stops. Ethan painfully and slowly climbs from the passenger seat. A small wave to say thanks. Interior roadside bar, outside Morocco, day. A place with some character, local color, a little live music. Ethan sits at a table and stares into space, a half-drunk beer in his hand. Through the door behind him, a familiar vehicle pulls up outside. Luther and Brant walk in, see Ethan and sit at the table. Ethan looks at Luther. The two old friends share a bittersweet smile. Are you gonna be Luther and Brant, or am I still Ethan?
Yeah, I'll be Luther and Brant, and you can be Ethan.
Okay. All right, so you got to differentiate their voices.
I will. I'll try to not get canceled in the process. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, here's Ethan. He was right in front of me. I know who he is. Luther looks around, leans into Ethan.
You know we got to take you in. You ready?
Ethan nods. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Exterior American Embassy, Morocco, day. Establishing America's local patch of turf. Interior American Embassy War Room, day. A large reception area has been converted into a CIA field office. Large monitors show real-time satellite surveillance. There are even 2 drone pilots at work. In the center of this hive is Hunley, papers in one hand, a phone in the other. He hands up as Brant and Luther enter. Close up on handcuffs. Ethan drops down into a chair, and we see that it is Ethan who is in cuffs. Luther and Brant's hands guide Ethan into his chair. They move off to the side, clearly embarrassed at the awkwardness of the situation. Hunley saunters all the way down the very long corridor. All right, go ahead, Hunley.
Ethan Hunt, it's an honor to finally meet you face to face. You've had a very busy weekend, participating in the assassination of the Austrian Chancellor, drafting a former colleague into an imaginary witch hunt, breaking into a secure computer facility, and streaking down a Moroccan highway doing a $180 on a motorcycle with no helmet. You, sir, have single-handedly redefined the term covert operative. That is a great moment. That is, man.
Oh, man, I'd love to see that full speech from Baldwin, although this is just as good.
Yeah,
True,
okay,
this is
ready?
just as good. Ethan moves to speak, but Hunley is quicker.
And yet, I owe you an apology. See, I was convinced the syndicate was a ruse created entirely by you. But you know what makes the CIA great? Why we'll always win? Because we can confront something no one else can, truth. We face it no matter how ugly. We accept it no matter how hard. And we deal with it no matter what it takes. And the truth is, I was wrong. The syndicate isn't a figment of your imagination after all. It's a figment of hers.
He opens a manila file and holds up a piece of paper. Ilsa's image, along with the words, wanted, target of opportunity.
Ilsa Faust, former British intelligence. Oh, did she not mention the former part? She was disavowed.
It's a cover.
You don't think I made that assumption, Hunt? I've been a spy since you were eating lunch out of a paper bag on the playground. Being the courteous sort, I put in a call to my British counterpart before targeting one of his own. Seems the Brits have been just a half step behind her since she took her skills to the open market. Saboteur, assassin, you name it. In fact, the more they told me about this woman, the more familiar her story sounded.
Hunley holds up another piece of paper. A photograph of Ethan's pyramid of evidence appears. Evidence collected in places Hunley is listing.
Jakarta, Manila, the Bosphorus, every one of the attacks you attributed to the syndicate, she was there.
Because she was after the same man I am. The man you should be looking for right now. Neither one of us is equipped to fight this guy alone.
Hunt, are you familiar with the term confirmation bias?
It's the tendency of the human mind to focus only on facts that support a foregone conclusion.
You destroyed your entire life trying to prove there's a syndicate. But the truth is it was just her. A woman who had your number from day one. Her own people confirmed it. And the Brits didn't just give me the green light to take her out. They signed it tally-ho.
I came here today because I believe you're a good man.
Came here? You must have fallen off that motorcycle pretty hard. You were captured and brought here because Brant and Stickle were smart enough to pick the winning side. More than I can say for your pal Benji when I find him. How long do you think he'll last in Leavenworth?
I need your help.
I can help you, Hunt. I can get you your 20 minutes of sunshine every weekend for the rest of your life. Tell me where she is.
Solomon Lane. That's the former British agent you should be looking for. Hunley turns away and addresses the two agents.
Shackle him. We're going to the airport.
As Hunley walks away, the Brits don't want you to know he even exists. Ask yourself why. Hunley pauses for a step, then keeps walking. As Ethan is taken away, he sees Brant and Luther standing off to the side. All three men make eye contact. Ethan's expression is stone. Then he's gone. As Brant and Luther walk away, you're going to be Brant or you're going to be Luther?
You can be Brant, I'll be Luther.
Okay. I need you to do me a favor.
It'll be my pleasure.
Interior American Embassy War Room Day. Close on. Luther at a CIA workstation, a thumb drive sticking out of a USB slot. The computer requires a password. Luther scoffs. A moment later, he has access. A few keystrokes and downloading database appears on the screen. A progress bar begins. Almost there. Luther looks around nervously. There's a voice off screen.
Stickle.
Luther turns with a start to find Hunley staring at him. Brant is with him. They share a look. Shit.
You're coming with us.
Hunley turns and walks. Luther snatches the thumb drive and follows with Brant. Interior Embassy lobby, day. Ethan is escorted by the two Marines. They all walk out the front door to a waiting SUV. Ethan is shackled into the back. Hunley leads Luther and Brant out the front door and, exterior Embassy front steps, day, down the steps where two Marine guards stand sentry. Two SUVs are waiting. Ethan is placed in the back seat of the SUV. Hunley points to Stickle.
Stickle, you're driving.
Hunley turns to the CIA agents.
You two ride with them.
Luther nervously climbs behind the wheel. Hunley motions for Brant to get in the rear passenger seat. Hunley climbs in next to Brant. The remaining four agents climb into the front vehicle and all drive away. Interior SUV 1, day. Ethan, Brant, Hunley, Luther. An awkward silence. Interior SUV 2, day. The agents ride in bored silence. The driver periodically glances in the mirror at Hunley's SUV behind them. Exterior Embassy front steps, day. Hunley exits the building and comes down the front steps. Confused? So is he. He turns to a Marine.
Where is my car?
The Marine looks at Hunley, perplexed. Interior SUV 2, day. Looking through the heads of the four agents and the window behind them, we can see Hunley's SUV make a sharp turn and vanishes down a side street. A beat later, the driver looks back, does a double take. He hits the brakes. Interior SUV 1, day. Luther turns to Hunley and nods. Hunley grabs a hold of his chin and pulls, tearing off his face. Reveal, Benji. Benji, in Hunley's voice.
Admit it, I was great.
Benji pulls off the voice control patch on his throat. They drive in silence for a few moments. Benji pulls the cord to deflate his suit. He starts to laugh. Brant looks across to him and starts to laugh. Luther joins in, breaking the mood. Ethan smiles. The laugh subsides. Luther tips his hat at Ethan. Ethan looks at Benji. Please tell me you still have a copy of that disc. Benji holds up the drive.
Still got it.
He nods. Brant hands the handcuff key through the glass to Ethan. And Brant says,
Where to now?
And Ethan says, London. Ethan deep in thought. We go to Exterior Parliament, London, day. And that's where Ilsa meets with Atlee near Big Ben, which is a scene we know from the movie. So that's that whole section. Whew. It's a whopper.
It's a lot of running around, a lot of back and forth.
And Benji got his mask.
Yeah.
Benji got his mask moment, which was obviously cut. I think we heard actually McQuarrie tell us a short version of that section in our very first interview, maybe, where he talked about Baldwin coming out and we, the audience is confused for a second and then you reveal that it's actually Benji in the fat suit. That's pretty fun reveal, having Benji like deflate his bodysuit.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, I just think it's not necessary. There's a lot of great dialogue in there, but
yeah, and there's a great speech for Baldwin.
Yes,
but in the end, all of that got condensed into just that very short diner scene, like roadside diner, where Ethan just like doesn't he come in and he's just like, Benji, you have that disc, you have a copy of that disc, right? And then Benji's like, yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
Yep. And then I think some of that, I think got kind of moved to Baldwin's. He is the living manifestation of destiny. I feel like that has an echo of this sequence. So I feel like we got it all.
Yeah.
Just more condensed and elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were right to cut it. That would have just been pure running around for the sake of running around, and also very familiar to other movies that he's been captured and done, the same thing has been said to him. And,
Right.
I'm thinking about 3 in particular.
It feels a bit repetitive. It's really impressive just to think of them making, like, to just take a step back and be like, okay, we can make this cut. All we need to do is all we need is this one little bit, and we can just record that. We can do a short scene, a short pickup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it speaks to McQuarrie's willingness to throw the baby out with the bathwater if it's not working. And I think it's a really admirable quality to have in a writer and a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think I don't remember if you look at that little pickup scene they did at the diner, like at the roadside, whatever, after the motorcycle chase, I think wasn't someone's hair totally different in that scene or something, or someone's obviously wearing a wig or something if you look closely. Really? I think so. I can't remember. But in any case, it totally works, and I wouldn't have thought to think of it. You don't notice it unless you know to look for it, and then you can know it, but it all works.
Green screen technology also has come a long way in the years since Rogue Nation.
But, there's some amazing green screen in Rogue Nation, too. Like it's like they're like on a helicopter landing spot, and it's just it's just Luther and Brant. And that's like entirely green screen.
Wow.
Which I did not know.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Well, there's one more.
What?
There's one more quick one.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this is it. So it's the scene we just ended on was Atlee and Ilsa by the Big Ben. It's the end of that scene. Ilsa turns and walks away. Atlee waits a beat before unfolding the paper yet again, revealing a cell phone there. The screen shows the outline of the drive Ilsa laid on the paper. The screen reads, "Copy complete." Atlee collects the phone and the paper, a satisfied look on his face. So it's not that big of a change, but it kind of is. They reveal it right then in the moment that he had copied it.
Right.
Do you remember this part? Because they wait and do a flashback and reveal that later. But originally, as scripted, you knew that Atlee was up to no good at the end of that scene.
Great. I don't know what to say. Does anyone think that they should have not been called Atlee and Hunley? We'll have to bring this up with McQuarrie. Too similar.
But they're kind of similar. Well, I guess
that's true. They are
Atlee's more corrupt, I guess. Hunley's not a bad guy. He's just a, kind of.
But they're they're in a similar position of power in their respective agencies.
Atlee ends up going to prison, we assume, and Hunley ends up getting promoted to the secretary of the IMF.
That's true. I mean, I just wish there was more Baldwin, more Renner,
Right.
And these scenes have that. So,
but hey, everybody today got a little bit of Baldwin today and a little bit of Renner.
A little bit.
We tried to capture the spirit. We did the best we could.
We did the best we could without getting canceled, and I think we did it. And
we hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. What else, Charles? Let's wrap this up. People have stuff to do.
That's it. Yeah, I think you've heard from us quite enough today. I want to give a special shout out to Stan Hairstraight. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name okay. And Thomas Victorio and Winston Riggs. Thank you, Stan, Thomas, and Winston, for making this episode possible. I want to credit our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, and shout out our music composer, Kevin Blumenfeld, and our intern, Amber Cohen. And I want to encourage everyone to please sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/lightthefuse. You can join at multiple levels there and support the show and get all kinds of bonus episodes that we do weekly. We just recently did our Sight and Sound ballots, which we were not asked by Sight and Sound to do ballots, but we did them anyway.
No, we were specifically told not to do them by Sight and
Sound.
We did it anyway.
Sight and Sound reached out to say, do not do a ballot, please. But we did it anyway. And so we did what would have been our ballots for Sight and Sound if they didn't ban us. And we always do stuff over there that's fun every week. So please check it out. And then also buy a shirt or a magnet or a sticker from our TeePublic store, which is linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com. If you go to the merch tab, you'll get a direct link to our TeePublic store. And also, while you're on the website, you can check out the episode guide and go through all our old episodes and pull up some awesome old show notes. We've got great behind-the-scenes photos and videos and great things. It's a companion to our show going back 4.5 years now. And what else, Drew?
Well, I just encourage everybody to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us out. And also follow us on social media at Light the Fuse Pod on Instagram and, God willing, Twitter. And we'll be back next week. Do we know what episode is coming next week, Charles? Do you know?
I think I do, but you never know what we thought we knew this episode was going to be last week. So no promises, but we've got good stuff coming up. That's all we should say, I think.
Yeah, you can take that guarantee to the bank. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.